Hello, and welcome to Learning Science by Being a Scientist. In this video, we are going to explore how and why scientists use mathematics and computational thinking. Whoa, wait a minute. I bet you thought this series was all about science, right? So what are we doing talking about math and computational thinking? Well, it all comes down to data. Remember when we said before that when you are doing the work of a scientist, you are gathering data in order to help you answer your questions? Well, much of that data comes in the form of numbers. And even when it doesn't, you can turn your observations and descriptions into numbers. With all of these numbers flying around, we need to have a way to organize them and communicate them. That is where mathematics comes in. Scientists use mathematics to help them organize, analyze, and communicate their data. When you as a scientist get your data from your investigation, you need to organize it. You do this in a chart. A chart helps you line up all the numbers, counts, measurements, and observations. This makes it easier to figure things out. You might want to figure out the average or mean of all of your measurements. You might want to compare the data from all of your tests or observations. You may want to add up all the data in a test or study. When you do any of these things, you are doing math. There are other things you will want to do when analyzing your data. You may want to look for trends or patterns in the data. You may want to figure out the cause and effect relationship between the variables in your investigation. To do these things, you need to see what the numbers are doing. And the easiest way to do that is to turn your chart of numbers into a picture, into a graph. Different graphs are used for different things. Some of the most common graphs used by scientists are bar graphs, pie graphs, and line graphs. If you are measuring the number of flowers that grow on plants using different kinds of plant food, you would want to compare counts for each plant. You would use a bar graph for that. What do you notice about this bar graph? Do you see a trend between the data on the graph and the contents of the different fertilizers? What do you think that trend tells you about the plant food and how it affects the flowers on the plant? Can you infer a cause and effect relationship between these variables? If you are measuring the position of high tide on the beach and comparing it to the phases of the moon, you will want to measure where the high tide reaches on the beach every day. This would show you change over time. For this, you would use a line graph. What do you notice about this line graph? Do you see a pattern? What do you think the pattern tells you about the position of high tide and the phases of the moon? Can you infer a cause and effect relationship between these variables? If your classmates are taking a blind taste test and you are measuring the different flavors they say they taste, you would want to compare the proportion of each different response to the whole class. For this, you would use a pie graph. Did you notice that these charts and graphs were done on computers? When you, as a scientist, need to organize data and graph your data, especially when you have a lot of numbers, you would use a spreadsheet program to help organize those numbers. And these programs also make graphs. When a scientist uses a computer to help with their data, this is when they are using a computational tool and thinking. Computational tools and thinking are ways scientists use tools and technology to gather and organize large sets of data, numbers, and measurements. So why do we use all the math in science? Math is the language of science. It gives scientists a way to communicate the results of their investigations in a way that everyone can understand. If you ask 3 different people how warm they think the water is, you will get 3 descriptions that may mean 3 different things. But if you measure the temperature and tell the person that the water is 20 degrees Celsius, then you all know what that means. So there you have it. Math is the language of science. It gives scientists a common way to communicate and understand what they are doing. Math gives scientists a way to organize, analyze, and communicate their data and results. Math gives scientists a way to look for patterns, trends, relationships, and meaning in their results. And math gives scientists a way to use computational tools and thinking to work with very large sets of numbers. Thanks for watching. Come back soon and watch more videos about what scientists do. And remember, the best way to do science, to learn science, is to be a scientist. And that means doing what scientists do.